Okay. All right, to our live family. Sorry we had a little technical difficulty, but we're online now. And Jen is sending you a new link if you're wondering what happened. All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for being patient. So we have a beautiful family here. It's lovely to have, after all we've been through with COVID, right? To have skin and hair and hugs and hands and all of that. It's so great. And we also have friends all over the world. We usually have about 1,500 that are with us for this evening, and from everywhere: Denmark, Sweden, West Africa, Australia, UK, Canada. So we have friends all over the place now. It's wonderful. All right, let's just set an intention for this night. So we'll let Judah start. Yes, hello everyone. We see you, know your name, know the date and time, the place you were born and to whom, how many hairs are on your head, how many seconds you've lived in this precious body of yours. We're aware of you. This is what we are saying. We are aware of you. We are aware of what's important to you. We're aware of what you struggle with. We're aware of what you want and what you need. And we even know and understand you better than you know yourself. And this is the grace of this mystery that you call consciousness or God, a space held in which all knowledge, all wisdom, all love and joy reside for you. So here you are, and there are things on your mind, there are things on your heart that are important to you. And here we are, reaching from beyond the veil, from the unseen to you, unseen realm, in order to meet you in this moment. So open your heart, open your mind, open your body. Know that you are safe. Everyone within the sound of our voice now is safe. You are held in love and non-judgment and respect here. And so hear what we have to say from our higher perspective, a perspective that sees and knows and understands all things, and understand that it is flowing through a human vessel, and also through her human filters and yours as well. And so sift and sort, sift and sort, sift and sort, and find what rings true for you, what feels like a drink of water in the desert of your own experience. Find what seems like nourishment for you at this mile of your journey, and take it in. Take it in. Good. Wonderful. And so we're going to be speaking with and through this vessel this evening about relationships. You are relating with all manner of things at all times. You have a relationship with yourself. You have a relationship with nature. You have a relationship with inanimate objects and with other persons. You have relationships with people who embody souls, and also souls who no longer embody a body, who have passed on. And so you are constantly relating to all manner of things. And this relationship of life is full of twists and turns and unexpected things, is it not? And relationships can be your highest source of joy or your greatest source of pain. Wouldn't you agree? And so tonight we have lots to say, but more than that, know that there is energy behind each word for the freedom of your soul to break patterns that are not serving you, to free you into new perspective. And so the topic is too relationships, but change in relationships. So this night is about change, and it's about change specifically in relationships. So know this, the you that you were when you parked the car and walked into the building is different from the you that you are now, even in these first few moments of this evening. And the you that will leave here will be a different you than the one that came in, you see. Because there will be something or some things or maybe many things or occurrences here tonight that will shift you, who you are. And change is a natural and normal part of life. And so if and where you are resistant to change, you are resisting life itself. You see, you would think it was silly if one little green leaf was holding on in the fall after all the other leaves on the tree had turned yellow and red and orange and then turned loose and lay brown and dead on the ground. And wouldn't you think it silly if there were one little green leaf still holding on in the top of the tree? And so why would you be that one silly little green leaf still holding on to something? When change is natural, it is beautiful, it is glorious. Many of you take trips in the fall to see the changing of the leaves, don't you? Because it is so beautiful. And no one drives down the parkway looking at the beauty of the colors of the trees and says, oh, isn't that sad? Isn't it sad, sad, sad? I want to stop and cry here for a while because these leaves are dying. They're going to be dead shortly. No one says that. How silly. Of course not. Instead, they enjoy the burst of color and the beauty of the change. And so if there is something, some part of your life, some relationship, some aspect of who you are or who you have thought yourself to be that is dying, let it die and let it go out with a blaze of glory if you can, and enjoying the beauty of the change. But don't be like the one little green leaf holding on. Instead, release and let go. Good. So we're going to do work periodically. When I say work, it's not really quite the right word, but we're going to get some things done together. So let's just start right here. I want you to just ask in your inner being, and just ask in your heart. Listen for a yes or no. If your mind is kind of doing the monkey mind thing tonight, sometimes it helps to put your hand on your heart. Just to connect with your heart. So let your mind melt now down into your heart. And so could you let go of wanting and needing things to stay the same? Could you let go of wanting and needing things to stay the same? And could you allow things to be new? Could you allow yourself to be new? Could you welcome change? Could you welcome the beauty of change? Could you open up to it? Could you let go tonight of whatever's not serving you, whatever's holding you back? Could you release it? Could you embrace the natural occurrence of change? Could you let go of forcing change? Because there's no force, is there, when the trees fall from the leaves? It's very gentle and very natural. So could you let go of forcing yourself to change? Could you let go of even wanting and needing to make the change happen in you? Could you let go of that? And could you let yourself just be what you are? Just be what you are and let life do what it does in you to shift and to change you so ever so naturally. And could you welcome the assistance of angels tonight and of source, of spirit, to release from you anything that's not serving you well? Could you release everything that's a fear? Could you release fear? Could you release everything that's not your highest and best good? Even if it seems so very important to you and you feel very, very attached to it. If there's some higher force of life that knows that it's not for your best, could you release it? So tonight we're going to be channeling and chatting about the courage to change our relationships. Specifically, how do we bring consciousness when we're in a journey of kind of waking up to different things about ourselves, about the nature of life, about the nature of reality, seeing things, maybe different beliefs or things we've bought into in life that haven't served us. When we're in an awakening process, how do we navigate how that impacts our relationships? Does that sound like anything anybody might be experiencing or need help with? Okay. So we're going to talk about how to shift and expand at how you relate to others as you're growing in consciousness, how to free yourself from pain, from hurt and fearful feelings as you're undergoing this awakening process. I know there's got to be somebody out there that's doing this sort of deep dive into the work of the soul, that's just having a great time and enjoying it, and it feels like a vacation for them. It just hasn't been me. So if you meet them, please hook me up. We're going to talk about how to be true to your higher self in challenging relationships, how to stretch beyond the conditioned, limited perspectives that we have about relationships, and we're going to kind of undo some lies about relationships. And we're going to talk about how to use relationships to actually dissolve the bad karma that we're all longing to get rid of and to begin to evolve spiritually. So I want to encourage you that if you feel any emotion coming up during tonight, that's very, very normal. So a lot of times people apologize that they immediately start crying. Don't feel bad, just let the emotion come. Emotion is energy in motion. That's where we get the term. And so when emotion is coming up, that's a beautiful sign that you're actually getting free. Because what doesn't work is talking about stuff, right? Maybe some of you have had that experience. Maybe you've been to a really great counselor 15, 20 years or a year or two or whatever, maybe spent tens of thousands of dollars, and you still don't feel better. And so talking won't set us free. What sets us free is feeling the energy of our feelings and then releasing it from out of our physical person so that it's gone and expelled. So feel free to feel all your emotions. I don't even care if you wail. That's fine. There have been people that have been through things with me. So we'll be here for you, and there's absolutely no judgment here, and there's tissues around here too. All right. So let's talk about, I'm just going to review quickly some things from last week. And if you didn't see last week and anything from tonight's really hitting this right spot for you, please go back and watch last week. But I'm going to quickly review 3 things from that. One of the difficulties we have in our relationships, or having the relationships we want, is we can have a subconscious belief that change is hard, right? It's deeply buried. We're going to talk about the iceberg, right? So this is what's under the water, the big iceberg we can't see. We have somewhere this belief inside. Change is hard. I can't do it. I've invested 30 years in this relationship. I can't give it up now. It's too hard. Or whatever the ideas we have about change being hard. So if you know that, if that's one that's popping up for you, then later tonight we're just going to clear that, okay? So you can say mantras like, change is easy. I can make this change. But you're probably not going to be able to say it enough 1 zillion million times to undermine the hurt from whatever the original wound was that caused you to believe that relationships are hard. So it takes a real miracle of angels. And I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes about how angels can help us and get involved and make this work easier for us. Another problem that we can have in relationships is we make what I'll call inner vows. So this happens usually when we're young, and we're usually not aware of them until we hear a teaching like this. So an inner vow that is like 2 train tracks that your life will run on. Your life is the train, the inner vow is the train tracks, and you literally will not be able to get off of those tracks until you address the inner vow. So you really need angels to actually switch the tracks for you. You need God to really intervene. So an inner vow looks like this. Let's say maybe when you were young, you became aware that your dad had an affair. So maybe you then saw your mom grieving and hurt and in terrible pain over it. So as a little girl, little boy, you might have made a promise inside your heart, I'll never let that happen to me. Men are all cheats. And that's not going to happen to me. And so we make a promise in a childlike state of hurt and wounding and trauma. And our subconscious, our body never forgets that vow, even though we forget it, on the mental level. And so the way that will play out then is as you grow up and you begin having romantic relationships and coming of age, you will attract men that are cheats. Or you will become the cheat. So there is a little phrase that you can remember that will help you remember this principle. You either reap it in a mate or become the thing you hate. So you either become the very thing that you judged let's say if this case it was your dad that cheated, you either become the cheat or you reap it in a mate. You join with a partner who cheats on you. So these kind of inner vows can apply to millions of different things. Like maybe when you were little, your mom was extremely overweight. Maybe she was obese. And maybe you felt a lot of hurt and shame around that, right? And so you maybe judged her. You don't remember it now, but you can assume by the fruit of your life now that you judged her for that. And you said, I'll never be like that. I will never be like that. And so then you either reap it in a mate or become the thing you hate. Okay, so inner vows will defile the people we're in relationship with. So let's say if I was that little girl whose dad cheated on her, let's say when I grow up, I meet a wonderful man who's very loyal, very faithful, very trustworthy, has, none of the kind of qualities. He would never think about cheating. It's just not who he is, right? But because I have that deeply rooted vow in me, it defiles him, right? It's like being vomited on. And so eventually over time, he may be so defiled by that he becomes something he wouldn't normally be, and he begins to cheat. Because I have an expectation of men that they're going to cheat. And so it actually, the energetic environment and my bitterness and hurt actually causes him to be something that he wouldn't have normally done. Does that make sense? So if you feel these bitter roots judgments coming up for you, you really want to lock into that because you want to work it through so that you're not defiling the people that you're in relationships with. And you'll say, well, how do I recognize these? How do I know if I have these? Well, you'll know because you have a repeated pattern that keeps happening, right? And so you can switch partners as many times as you want, or locations or whatever, and this pattern will come back at you again. And so usually these inner vows sound like statements like I always or I never. So if you sit with your heart for a little bit, they usually will come to you pretty quickly, right? Like I'll never get married. That can be a vow, right? If maybe your parents went through a really painful breakup with when you were little, so maybe you don't even remember this, but you might have made a vow, I'll never get married. Okay, so, and the third thing that's a review from last week is another challenge that we can run up on in relationships is when we have a bad case of the if-onlys. And this is where we can kind of have this immature, kind of childlike thinking. We might not even recognize it in ourselves. Well, where we'll say, well, if only he would just be on a spiritual path with me, or if only she would stop smoking, or if only he would stop drinking, or if only. And a lot of times, especially as women, I can't speak for guys because I've never had a guy experience that I remember, but you know, it would sound like this: well, if only I could love him better. If only I could just make the right thing for dinner. If only I could just have the house peaceful and quiet when he comes home. Or if only I couldn't just do that one freaking thing that I always do that triggers him. If only, if only, if only, if only. But the truth is, people do what they do, right? Mantra, let's say it together. People do what they do. People do what they do, and they change when they want to change. And so it's really a deception of the ego that makes us think that we're somehow responsible for other people, because we're not. And they're going to do what they do, and we may or may not be able to impact that. So know that change is inevitable in every relationship. Even if you're in a long-term relationship, 30, 40, 50 years, you're going to be married to not the same person. That person that you're married to for 30, 40, 50 years is going to change. Who they are today, they might be somebody completely different 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, right? And so there's no way around change. It's a gift. So this week, when I was working with Judah, I saw a big, huge boulder. And I saw this boulder was called karma. Right. And I hear this from different people. They'll say, but my spiritual guide told me that in my past life this happened to me and I just can't get past this karma. Right? I hear that. Or maybe we don't even believe in past lives, but we just think there's just this thing that keeps happening to us over and over and over, and it just won't seem to stop happening. Well, so one of the things that I see, so I obviously my work is in the spiritual realm, right? Which sometimes I think of as a circus in some sorts. So we tend to think that, well, if I just would be more kind, or if I would just give more money to charity, or if I would just meditate more, or pray more, or read the Bible more, whatever we think is going to move this bad thing, this bad yuck thing that keeps happening or is happening to us. So, but that's not it. Judah showed me a lever. So you can't move the boulder, right? It's too big. Judah showed me a lever under the boulder. And guess what Judah said the lever is? It's relationships. Relationships are the primary tool that we have to grow. And, you know, do you guys remember that second grade lesson called Simple Tools? I was a second grade teacher once, so I remember it. Levers, pulleys, and what was the other one? Fulcrums. You remember that? You remember learning that you can't move a big, huge boulder by yourself, but you could use a lever to move it, couldn't you? So relationships are what really help us clear this karma, and they're the most effective tool for our growth. But here's the caveat. If we're unconscious in relationships, all we do is create more karma. We just make more of it. We make more shit. We just pile more shit on the shit that's already there. So if we're unconscious, we don't even realize that we're just making more karma. If we're conscious, though, we can use it as the lever to remove what's not serving us anymore, what's hurting us, what we don't want anymore. You know, one of the big boulders for my kids and my family is poverty. That's a big one. So I can use everything going on in my life and in my relationships with them as a lever to remove that, because I want to be the mom. I want to be the one where the buck stops here. I don't want anybody else in my family line or in my soul family to suffer from poverty anymore. So I use my experience and my relationship with my kids and my family to move that boulder. Maybe for some of you, it's cancer. Maybe you have a whole lineage of cancer in your family. Maybe part of your purpose and why you decided to be born into this family is to stop it permanently, right? So with karma, you can't deal with karma by going to a medium or somebody like me. Like, there are times where Judah shows me things that happen to people in their past lives. But you have to know that that's not going to set you free from it. What's going to set you free is by working on it right now, within the context of the relationship that you've been given. And so you can have all the information about your past lives, but it's not going to make a difference until you make the change in this current reality that you're experiencing. So if you're unconscious in relationships, you're going to create more crap. If you're conscious in relationships, that's your kryptonite. That's your karma kryptonite. And it will clear this stuff. So one of the temptations we can have as we're awakening and on a spiritual path and we're beginning to grow, we may want to opt out of a relationship, one or more, several, right? Thinking that that's going to put an end to our suffering. I'm changing, you're not, I'm out of here. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes you have to go your own way and move forward in your spiritual life. But sometimes that could be your ego at work, and it could be just giving your ego a pass to get out of doing some hard work that could potentially set you free. Some relationships are a perfect storm. You know, have you ever had a situation where you divorced number one and maybe number two, and then number three came along, and doggone it if he wasn't just exactly like number one and number two, and you're like, how am I doing this? Well, you know, you're attracting that to work through the karma, that the things in yourself that you're still not willing to face. So some relationships are a perfect storm, which means they're crappy and shitty, and things are going to fly apart and come undone, and it's not going to be fun. But, you know, storms are God's way of getting rid of what's dead. Have you noticed that? Like at our house, we have these big old oak trees, and every time a big storm comes through, we lose some huge limb or two or three. So that's God's way of getting rid of what's dead. It's a very natural process. Even wildfires can be that way. It's a natural clearing and cleansing. So this is where you really have to have discernment. In my first marriage, early on, I had people say to me, people that I respected, people that were wise, people that I trusted, people that had some know-how, say, you really must get out of this relationship. He's never going to change. Were they right? Maybe. Maybe they were 100% right, but you know what? They didn't have to feed my kids. They didn't have to pay for my car insurance. They didn't have to feel the pain that I would feel or my kids felt. Did I make a mistake by not leaving way back then? Maybe, maybe not. But the bottom line is you're the only one who has to live with the consequences of your choices. Only you. That's all, right? And so if anybody ever came to me and said, Judah, you know, should I get a divorce? I'm not going there, because I'm not responsible for you and your life, right? And I'm not going to have to live in the aftermath of whatever choices that you make. So sometimes divorce, I sent to a friend, I guess it was a week or two ago, a video of Osho's. Somebody was asking, if you don't know, Osho is an enlightened being. He's ascended master now, and he was Chuck's guru when he was a very young man. And a reporter asked him, what do you think about divorce? And he said, everybody should get a divorce. No one should be married. Marriage is bondage. Free yourself. Everyone on the planet, get a divorce. You know, so I love that. That when first time I heard that, it really provoked me. But there's some truth in what he's saying, right? Marriage has a certain component of bondage and a loss of freedom. Now, I'm sure that there were other times on film somewhere where Osho told people, you need to get married. All right? So you have to know your own heart, right? You have to know in your own heart. Am I going to grow as a person by staying in this relationship and facing what's in me? Or do I need to go? Is my soul calling me forward, or is my ego pushing me out? See, there's two different things. Your soul will call you forward in peace. And even though there might be pain in the parting of ways, even though it might be really hurtful, somewhere deep inside you feel so much peace, like you just know it's the right thing. But the ego will try to force you out or force the other out. So as you awaken, just be aware of creating too much change too fast in relationships. So in relationships, the ego will come up in us. When I say ego, I'm talking about our conditioned responses. I'm not talking about you as a person. I'm talking about the things you have been taught to think, feel, and believe. So the ego will rise up and say, he must change, she must change, this must change, this is not acceptable and it must stop. Or, I must change, I must stop doing this. This is not okay that I'm doing this. It has to stop. And then once the person changes or we change, we're like, oh no, wait, change back. Please change back. Right? So as you begin to grow and change and you're awakening to spiritual realities, things within your own heart, there can become this kind of obvious polarization of positive and negative. You know, I get these notes all the time from people all over. They'll say, I'm meditating and I'm doing all this work on myself, and he's just sitting in front of the TV all the time watching trashy television and staying drunk. What do I do? Right? So there can come this kind of obvious polarization. You're polarizing more positive and they're polarizing more negative. And the more positively you polarize, the more positive you get, the more negative they become. And it just seems to happen this way. So just remember, there was a Zen master once that said, before enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. After enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. So when you feel tempted to, because you're growing and changing so much on the inside, to change everything about your external life, change your job and the way you dress and wear crystals or whatever, you know, go to see channelers and whatever you're doing, you know, be aware, maybe, you know, change in a way that's more natural and easy and not so drastic that you kind of implode on yourself. So I feel like I'm spending a lot of time on this thing about staying and going, but maybe there's a reason for that and somebody needs it, so I'll keep going with that. So remember, when you're considering changing a relationship, as you're growing, you're becoming a new person, you're metamorphosizing, and this other person maybe is not. There are several changes around what you can do. One choice is not to make a choice. Not making a choice is a valid choice. Sometimes you can say to yourself, I'm just going to let this play out. I'm going to let it play out, and I'm not going to make a choice. So inaction can be a valid choice. I made a note, which I mentioned already. Be careful about other people's advice, right? You're the only one that has to live with your choice. And then some notes on cultural conditioning. There's, you know, I don't know about you guys, I loved it. One time I saw a card in the card shop, and it was like a card that you send somebody for their divorce to celebrate. I was like, what? It just blew my mind, right? Because when I grew up in such deep religious conditioning that divorce was like a terrible, terrible sin. Like it was like the worst thing that could happen to you, right? So I just thought it was so weird that people actually like celebrate getting a divorce. But know that divorce is not a failure, right? It's not a failure. It's just a change. It's just a change. And if you don't like that word divorce, I don't like it personally. I try not to ever say it. Just don't say it, right? Just say, we had a parting of ways. My partner and I had a parting of ways. That's all you need to say. And even the word breakup, doesn't break sounds horrible, like break. Broke, my heart was broken. Break. Oh, you don't need to say that either, right? So think about the words you say and reframe how you talk about your relationship experiences. You don't have to introduce, when you have that, we all have those little conversations we have where we get to know each other for the first 2 or 3 minutes when we meet someone. You don't have to announce to everybody that you're divorced. Who cares? Who cares? It's not a failure. As a matter of fact, Neil Donald Walsh has been like such a game changer for me, and he's been married 7 times. And when I heard that, I was like stunned for a few seconds, and then I thought, well, all right, that's all right with me, because his work has literally changed my life. So a choice is to just let things take their course. Lao Tzu said, open yourself to the spirit, then trust your natural responses. Trust your natural responses, and everything will fall into place. You don't have to figure out what's going to happen in the relationship next week or next month or next year. Just be in the moment and trust your natural responses. Let things fall into place. The master sees things as they are without trying to control them. She lets them go their own way and stays in the center. So here's the option that always works. And let's let Judah channel on this one. What always works in relationships is to change yourself. If you want to feel better, free yourself from yourself. And that's always the first and best option. Yes, that is correct. The first and best option is to commit to whatever is being presented to you in the moment, with whomever and however it comes to you, to recognize this is my opportunity. This relationship is the lever that's going to remove the things in me and around me, the things that I don't like, the things that aren't serving me, the things I can't live with about myself anymore, the things that are causing me suffering, you see, yes. And so always begin, number 1, be a light unto your own self. Be a light unto your own self. Look on the inside. Realize that the other one is only mirroring something back to you about yourself. So let's say that you're in a partnership with someone who is drinking far too much, drinking themselves under the table night after night after night. Well, you can judge them, yes, or you can look at them and say, Angie said to me, Judah said to me, that everyone is a mirror for me. Oh my goodness, I certainly am not this a louse of a drunk lying passed out on the couch. What does she mean? Well, look a little deeper. Why is your mate passed out drunk? Are they overworked? Are they tired? Are they hurting inside? Are they repressing or covering up pain with alcohol, you see? And what about you? Are there ways that you are repressing pain? How are you staying drunk? How are you passing out and avoiding the hurt that you feel inside? Are you passed out? Are you unconscious, passed out, day after day after day, ignoring your own pain? Are you medicating yourself with work, with being on your phone, with sleeping long hours and just avoiding life? So we'll say to you that most of the time, when you look at this one that you're in relationship, the one that's causing you so much suffering, perhaps causing themselves suffering, and you want out, and perhaps out is the way, that is okay. But look first and say, are they mirroring something to me? For instance, with this vessel, in one of her primary relationships, her partner was extremely angry, very angry, hot-tempered, and she became depressed because of this explosive anger. So you see, the truth is, if she looked in the mirror of this one, her partner, maybe it was she who wanted to get angry. Maybe she wanted to shout. Maybe she wanted to yell. Maybe she wanted to speak her mind and wanted things to change and be different. Maybe she wanted to voice her frustration and anger, but she did not. She allowed him to do it all, and instead she became depressed and stuffed hers deep into her cellular structure until she ultimately became sick, you see. So recognize the other is a mirror for you. And if you're really, really, really brave, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. And what do you see there about yourself? And as we shared with someone in this room, even recently, when you look in a mirror, if there's a smudge on your face or a cut on your face, you don't reach up to the mirror and wipe the smudge off the mirror. That would be silly, wouldn't it? No, you reach up into your own face and tend to the cut or wipe off the smudge. And so when you're in relationship with people and they're mirroring something back to you of who you are, tend to your own vibration, tend to your own heart, love yourself, forgive yourself. Let it go, let it go, let it go. You see? Good, good, good. Any questions about any of that so far, or anything you want to hear Judah channel about that so far? Go ahead, sweetie.
I have a question. Is this whole talk your way of telling me you want a divorce?
No, absolutely not. I can see why you'd ask that question, but no, absolutely not. All right. Okay. So commit in whatever relationship you're in, no matter what's going on, no matter how hard it is, commit to keep the focus on yourself and your own interior life. Focus on what's going on in your body. Refocus over and over again, over and over again. Have endless patience with yourself. Be completely patient with yourself. Forgive yourself. Have compassion for yourself. You know, and make your own personal progress the number one priority of your life. Know that, feel in your body. Let's just do that now because I can see there's a lot of emotion coming up. So I want you to just tune into your body for a minute. And I want you to feel where you feel the energy. You might feel it in your heart area, your chest. You might feel it down lower, your hands, your legs. Where do you feel the energy? And does it feel like an opening, expanding energy, or does it feel like pain or contraction? Where do you feel the energy? And then when you feel it, you feel that, right now I feel a lot of tension in my chest area, so I'm guessing a lot of you are probably feeling it in your heart. Now I want you to ask with your inner voice of your own heart, I want you to ask, hurt, do you want to go? Hurt, do you want to go? Hurt, do you want to go? Fear, do you want to go? Grief, do you want to go? Good, you guys are doing great work right now. I can see it on your faces. Grief, do you want to go? And you might feel like taking a big deep breath. You might actually feel it kind of rise up like bubbles. You might feel it come right up through the center of your being and up out of your mouth. Grief, do you want to go? You can even hear the yes, can't you? You can hear it in your heart. Grief, do you want to go? Yes. Grief, do you want to go? Yes. Hurt, do you want to go? Yes. Hurt, do you want to go? Yes. Fear, do you want to go? Yes. And so right now, as Judah, I just take authority over all your inner vows, your always and your nevers, and I release you from them right now. Now, I release you from every vow, every bitter root judgment and vow that you've made. I release you from them right now. Good. So all of our diseases come from these stuffed things down in our body, and all of you that see Chuck for acupuncture know the truth of this. Okay, I don't want to move on yet because I still feel a lot of going on in your heart. Good. Some deep breaths. Good. All right. So could you let go? Could you let go of the hurt? Could you let go? And could you let go of the one that you thought was the one? Could you let go? And could you let go of the idea that there's one, just one, that's right for you? Could you let go of that? And could you welcome the parting of ways if it's what's best for you? Could you welcome it? Could you welcome the sadness that comes with the parting of ways? Could you welcome it? Could you just let yourself feel sad tonight? You can actually, Judah says, you can leave your sadness right here in this room. You don't have to take it out the door with you. You can leave all of it right here. Yes, Judah's collecting all the sadness in the room onto the altar of the soul. And you can leave it right here. And when you walk out, you'll feel so much lighter. Good, 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 good. And could you welcome something new? Could you welcome change? Could you welcome that the other stays? Could you welcome that they go? Could you let them come? And could you let them go? And can you welcome the change? And could you let them stay? And could you let them go? And could you welcome all of your feelings? And could you welcome all of their feelings? Could you welcome all of their feelings? Could you welcome all of your feelings? And could you let all of the emotional energy, all of the feelings play out? Could you let them play out until there's nothing left of them? Could you let them all be completely spent, all of your emotions? Could you finally, all those emotions that you didn't feel when you were little, could you feel them now, right now, tonight? Could you feel them? And spin them all completely, every bit of the energy until it's completely gone. And could you welcome freedom? Could you welcome that you love the other, but you also give them freedom? Could you allow them to be free? Could you allow them their freedom? And could you take back your freedom? Could you welcome freedom? Could you allow yourself to be free? And could you allow love and freedom to exist in the same space? Could you allow yourself to love that one, but also give them their freedom? And could you welcome loving yourself and giving yourself freedom? Good, good. And could you just let it go? Could you forgive all of it? All of it. Could you just forgive all of it? Could you forgive yourself for all of it? All the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. Wish I had have, but I didn't and I did. Could you forgive all of it? And could you forgive them for all of it? Good, good, good. So the key then in our relationships is that we are still doing our interior work. So we can change everything on the outside. We can change partners, we can change homes, we can change jobs, we can change therapists, we can change bankers, we can change how much we weigh, we can change and change and change and change. But the change on the inside is what brings the peace and the freedom. So keeping the focus on ourselves, what's going on in our own body, in our own thoughts and emotions, welcoming all emotions, all of them, and embracing them as a sign of freedom, knowing they have a bottom. Sometimes when we're grieving, we're afraid if we start crying, we'll never stop, but that's not true. There actually is an end to it. And the beauty of it is that after we go through a time of catharsis, we feel better, so much better on the other side. Paying attention to our thoughts, right? Thinking about our thinking. So there's two ways we can, as we're becoming more enlightened, there's two ways to approach this. We can drop thought in meditation, which is the highest form of freedom. To go in that deep state of meditation where thinking stops altogether. And if you've ever tried to meditate, you know that can be seriously challenging for a long time. But I promise if you stick with it, if you're just consistent, you will eventually reach that moment. It might only be a few seconds at a time in the beginning where your mind stops and you think, wow, this is what peace feels like. You want to share anything on that, sweetie? He's floating over there. And if you can't in the moment drop the thoughts, if you don't have the grace, then think about what you're thinking and adjust your thoughts. Are you judging yourself? Are you judging others? Are you collecting evidence against yourself? Are you playing the lawyer and collecting evidence against the other person? You know, we do this whole little courtroom scene in our head, right? So we play the lawyer, we collect all the evidence, list this, this is everything that he did, this is everything that I did. And then we've got all our evidence. So there's a lawyer for, a lawyer against, and then there's the big judge. And then there's a jailer. He's just waiting for that gavel to drop, and then he's gonna cuff you and off you go for some punishment that you deserve, or punishment he deserves, right? And so this is the whole game that the ego plays, is this whole courtroom scene. And the ego in your mind will play all of those roles. It will either, list all the evidence to convict, or it'll say guilty, or it'll actually punish you or the other for some perceived wrongs. And there's no need for all that. In relationships, it can be just as simple as this: I want to stay. There's something in this for my soul. Or, it's time for me to go. It's time for me to go. And there doesn't have to be a reason or an explanation or a trial. It just can be that simple. You never have to give anybody an explanation for why you are or aren't in a relationship. So feeling the energy in motion in your body, you guys did a great job with that tonight. Am I overreacting? Ask yourself, am I overreacting or underreacting? For me, I have a lot of trauma that comes up, and poor Chuck, man, he gets the brunt of it. But when I start just like really overreacting in relationship to the issue at hand, the present moment issue, I know it's old stuff. It's old trauma, sometimes even past life stuff. All right, are you guys doing okay? Do you want to take a break? Should we stop? You okay? All right. Become a non-judgmental observer of yourself in relationships, of yourself and others. Just kind of observe, oh, that's him passed out. Oh, that's her being crazy. Oh, that's me being controlling. Oh, that's me wanting to punish him. Just observe it and don't judge it. Don't judge it. Take 100% responsibility for your part, right? Chuck taught me this. Man, he was just held my feet to the fire over and over and over. For years he's done this, and it really has been probably the primary thing, the number one thing that has set me free and brought me into this beautiful walk with Judah, is that no matter what was going on, he would not allow me to play the victim. He wouldn't allow me to blame him. Even if he was at fault in some way in the situation, he would insist that I took responsibility for my stuff, but not to blame him. So, here's a great one. maybe I'll stop with this after this one. This is one that seems to have been really present for Chuck and I lately in relationship, and it's just to talk less. Become really comfortable with silence. And the reason for it is this. Well, first of all, the culture has conditioned us that if it gets really silent, especially in a marriage or a romantic relationship, that it's over. Anybody relate to that? So if you go out to eat with your spouse and there's like zero conversation, or you're just like trying to dredge up something to talk about, you think somewhere in the back of your mind, because of conditioning and all the rom-coms that we watch, we think, oh, it's over. Okay, but that's not necessarily true. Could be, but it's not necessarily true. The ego mind thrives on talk. And so, and the reason it thrives on talk is the more you talk, the more life force energy or power is given to the ego's agenda. And so that's why a lot of times, you guys ever, has anybody in here ever done a silent retreat? Yeah? It's hard, isn't it? It's really freaking hard. So the ego will talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And it is sometimes when we catch ourselves talking a lot, it can be because we're trying to control with words, trying to control, and we're afraid of losing control. So we think if we keep talking or keep hashing out the issue or add some more detail, that somehow we'll get it under control. So how do you know? If you're feeling frightened, you may need to speak up. But if you're feeling really frightened and compelled to talk, then you may need to be quiet. So you have to kind of evaluate that. So for me, there's a lot of times when my ego's running amok that I just need to shut up. But then there's other times where my ego, I've been really quiet and frightened about something and I'm not speaking up for myself, and that's the time that I need to talk. Proverbs 10:19 says, where there's a lot of words, error is unavoidable, but the one who observes his language is wise. And Lao Tzu said the master doesn't talk, he acts. And so one thing I would say, Chuck and I go through periods of being really quiet together. One thing that's helpful, if you do decide to have a time of just quiet, or you generally just become more quiet as a part of your practice, to let the other person know, you know, hey, I'm just feeling compelled to be more silent and to have more quiet. I just wanted you to know it doesn't have anything to do with you, so you can prevent unnecessarily triggering stuff for them. So the last thing I'll share, a tool that you've likely heard me share before, is Jade. It helps me a lot. Justify, argue, defend, and explain. When I'm just doing one of those four things, justifying, arguing, defending, or explaining, that's usually my ego kicking around and I'm having some scared parts. All right. Okay, I know you guys are probably ready to move a little bit. Is there anybody that wants to ask a question for channeling? And then I want to make a time to just touch and bless and give a power energy transmission to anybody that's wanting that tonight, and that anybody that's wanting some clearings for any of the things we talked about. Any questions? Yeah.
I have a question. It's not totally related to this, but
Sorry.
I just had to ask it. Last week, the UNC shooting in, we have a daughter and a son that were locked in the classrooms. And so I just wanted to ask about the trauma to them specifically, and also in general for that whole, like all of them.
Yeah, the community.
The community there, and how it affected, and also how people talk about it when they, oh, what a terrible tragedy. Like I don't feel like that's, I feel like that's bad energy. Every time they say how tragic and how bad, and it is, but it's hard to not. I mean, it wasn't a mass shooting. It was just, thankfully, just one shooting of another, even though it's terrible, like I said.
Yeah,
it is.
it's really scary. Do you want to share anything?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear all of that. I'm still kind of
Her two children that are in school at UNC and the shooting.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and they were locked in a room.
Like for 3 hours, it was just
Yeah,
in a
3
flight or fight response for
Right,
3
terror.
hours. So especially my son. I mean, I'm pretty sure my daughter's gotten over some of that, but yeah, terror.
You want to speak to that?
Yeah. In the last year, I've seen at least 25 teenage girls who had severe stress or severe anxiety, because of these kind of situations. It creates a trauma to them, and it can affect them. You know, and I don't quite know. I think you have to look at each child and know what to say and how to say it. And we want to make them feel safe. Absolutely, we want to make them feel safe. But you know, this is what the world is doing to us right now. It's creating fear because they can control us with fear, and so we have to counter that with love. So one of the things we want to do is give them love them, hold them, make them feel safe. When a baby is held and felt loved by its mother, then it's happy. If a baby is not feeling loved, then it believes its life is at stake. And so that's when it's full of fear, because if my mother doesn't love me, she's the one who's supposed to love me the most, who's going to take care of me? And so we just have to play the mother. I think that's one of the things to do, is to play the mother, give them love, give them support, and talk to them. How do you feel? What did it make you feel like? What can we do about that? And if you see a change in personality, then I would say maybe seek some help. Now, like I said, I have treated at least 25 teenage girls. Teenage girls, it affects more because they're more open-hearted. About 5 boys in the last year, and it's because what they have is dysautonomia syndrome. It's a syndrome. It's kind of like post-traumatic stress syndrome. It's a mild case of that. And if you see severe stress or a change in their personality, know that they may be suffering from that, which can be cured. There's a way through acupuncture, and there may be other ways as well. But it's like if they keep having ongoing traumas, they can get stuck in fight or flight. They can get stuck in that, which is what post-traumatic stress syndrome is. It's also called dysautonomia syndrome, which is a dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is what's supposed to decide whether you're in fight or flight or growth and repair. And if you keep going into fight or flight, even from little situations, you can get stuck in fight or flight. And then their personality can change. And one of the most common things with teenagers is severe anxiety and some digestive problems.
Let's do a channel specifically for these UNC kids. Do you guys, if you just kind of stretch your hands over towards them and just send some, as you do it, if you just imagine that you're sending loving energy to all the kids there. Good. Yes. And so since these young ones experience such a trauma in the physical body of the terror running through their body and the fear of such an extended period, this 3 hours of time, for some it was longer, we think. And so for these, because it was a physical trauma and energetic experience, we would ask that whenever possible, that they have lots of physical contact of safety, as the gentleman described. Physical contact, touching the shoulder, holding the hand, wrapping arms around them, lots of warm blankets, cuddling with family and friends, lots and lots of physical contact, more than the 3 hours. 6 hours or more, we would say, to begin easing the trauma and putting them back into a growth and repair state and out of the fight or flight. Yes. Good.
I'm kind of stoned right now, so I don't know if I was very clear, but I'd be happy to talk to you some other time about that when I'm a little bit more grounded.
He's flying tonight. Okay, I'm gonna come around in just a little bit. So just Male valele onani ayo aha Shiva velu yana helo na meo Shiva male olale alalu maya ya Shiva Amarero rosso dova camare onayore o Vivere anayare o malevoriana niana moriano Iolo malale veono Shivo mamale ola via teverona Vivele vivele ilevela Shiva la vimele yona Iva vele mayeli vemelayo Shiva la me Shiva male ala unaye ahano Isovo morare ono no ashemanare ono naha Imavola la he ono ayole otsave moyana Eva Mariana Hoana Hela Yona Yaleona Ona Yatsavedonta Eva Vivere Uli Vivere Onaria Eva Ramayana Yama Leono Eva La Mileola La Veleama la me ala wayaha umama leo ya leo na yo na mayo ikamayo la ya ya leo ivororo amaleo la ya le atia leo come around and just give you an energetic shot of love and joy and grace from Judah if you want it, and it's fine if you don't like to be touched, that's fine. If you're open to that, I just ask you to put your hands upward on your lap so that I know. And Daryl, is it okay if we just have everybody send some love your way? So anybody, as you're waiting for me to come to you, if you could please send Daryl extra love healing energy for some health challenges, and I would really appreciate that. All right. Let me sign off on our folks out here.